right. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Milton School Committee of June 16th, 2021. The first order of business is to approve the agenda of June 16th, 2021. Oh, the pledge, right. Sorry. We need to put it on the agenda so I remember. We were home for so long, I can't remember. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, Mr. Jett. All right. I have a few adjustments to the agenda. I'm going to remove Finance Subcommittee report as there are no vendor warrants to approve. So number 6, I'm going to remove. I'm going to remove approval of minutes as I'm not sure that everyone had the opportunity to read them over. And after citizen speak, I'm going to add acknowledgements. Is there any other changes that anyone would like to make to the agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's 5-0. Great. All right, we're going to start with citizen speak. We have one member of the community here for citizen speak, Mr. Rob Burke. Mr. Burke, if you would like to approach the table, please. I will, yeah. Good evening, Mr. Burke. Thank you. If you would so kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. Just state your name and your address for the records, okay? And welcome. Thank you.
My name is Robert Burke. I live at 297 Pleasant Street, Milton. Our family's lived in Milton for 125 years, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Welcome.
Good evening, Ms. Denny, Ms. Dexter, Mr. Jett, Ms. Everhart, Ms. your Dr. Craighead, Rosemarin, and Ms. Carroll. Good evening.
Good evening.
I am been identified as a man. I was the person outside of the schools with my sign. Critical race theory destroys children. It's an ideological argument, has nothing to do with race. I'm here to say to you that I went to these schools, I love this town, and I can't say enough about you folks being elected. You've done a good job, so this is why I'm here. I want the Milton Public Schools to move forward, not backwards, not sideways, and I'd like to ask the committee to make sure when we talk about each and every student, we talk about what their capabilities are, not what they look like. I am a person of color. I know what it is to have the police come to my house and accuse me of doing something which was wrong. I was a redhead. I represent 0.5% of the total population of the world. My mother threw that police officer out of my house. There's a lot of things that's happened in this town since last year, whether it's the George Floyd incident, which was terrible. Mr. Floyd should never have been killed by anybody. But I blame Senator Amy Klobuchar. She had 14 times to get rid of that police officer, and she did nothing. People should be on her talking, why didn't she do anything? We're moving forward here. I noticed the reason I came was to have that Zoom call released. You have a public employee. Unfortunately, Zoom call got pushed all over the place. I saw her on TV, on radio. I heard her on radio, every newspaper. We need to know what that was all about. I want people to learn everything. Poetry. Wasn't great in school. I think we have a new person coming on, I may be wrong, to go through the whole curriculum. What are we talking about equity about? What exactly is that definition? We need to get to that. I want to know about it. I want to learn about it. I want the town of Milton not to be labeled as some bunch of screwballs, but someone says, hey, here's one point of an argument with Langston Hughes. And here's another point of an argument with Nikki Giovanni. I want to know that. And when are we going to have those, that tape, that Zoom call released? This is really important. I want to thank Mr. Jett for putting that letter out through the town. Thank you, sir. Took a lot of courage. You agree with a little bit of what I'm talking about because of the free speech in the U.S. Constitution. I never said anything about race or any type of things like that. It was never a race issue. It's always an ideological issue. I'm against the Marxists. If they're teaching Marxism in the school, that's got to stop. That destroys children. I want to thank you for listening to me, and I'm going to be back again. I want you to pledge to me sometime, and I asked each one of you, are you a patriot or a Marxist? 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 Ma'am, I'm looking at you. Are you a patriot or a Marxist? Ma'am, are you a patriot or a Marxist? That's all I'm looking for. This is the greatest country in the world, and I want to go forward, not backwards, not side, and I'm not going back. I listened to in closing, I listened to Miguel Codera today, Secretary, talking about attaching COVID money for this equity thing. Can anybody define the equity issue? Please. There's a new lexicon out there, and a lot of people don't understand it. I'm always trying to learn, so if we have a lexicon of new words, let's hear it. Don't be afraid. I'm not a racist. I've never been a racist, and shame on people for calling me racist at school. Shame on them. I stood there like a citizen of the United States with my constitutional right, express right, and some nitwit drive by calling me a racist. They don't even know the hell I am. Shame on them. I won't put their video out either. I have who they are. I would not do that. I would not put children in my video. Only idiots would do that. Let's get serious, folks. You got a lot of great education here. Harvard, Yale, the Wharton School, Tufts, William & Mary, Columbia. You're a dean of a school, ma'am. Correct, doctor? Who's the dean of Mass Maritime?
Mr. Burke, you think that we don't address the citizen speak? I'm so sorry.
Fine.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I want to be part of this, okay? And I expect all the parents to be part of it, too. They're bullied in this town. They're all bullied. I can't believe this. How afraid they are to come out and talk to you. I look at Mr. Jett and know what I think of? A person that's made it on his own thing. Not what he looks like. Ma'am, I'm looking at you right now. You made it because you worked hard. Ma'am, the same thing. They didn't appoint you. You ran for office and you won. 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 Fantastic. That's America. This is good. To sit here and be able to speak to you, and I don't want to raise my voice. It's really not my style, okay? I went to these schools. I love this town. And I don't want people to say, I got to leave my town because I'm being bullied. That's nonsense. That isn't America. That's some third world dictator, Pol Pot, Hitler, Stalin, Nazis. This has got to stop. I expect you people to stand up and let's go. Put the point of view out and let's move forward. This is not personal. This should not be held by government money. If you do this, we'll give you some more money. I couldn't believe the Secretary of Education talking like that today.
So, Mr. Burke, can you wrap up your comments,
I'm going to
sir?
wrap up right now.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank you so much. I really do. It was Flag Day on Monday. I want to give you an American flag. It's the greatest country on earth.
Thank you so much.
If there's a better one, let me know, show me. This is the greatest country of all time. We have our moments. Thank you, sir. We have our moments. We can get past this.
Thank you,
We have
Mr.
so many
Burke.
smart people here that wanted to help. You can't bully them anymore. No more bullying. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Have a wonderful day. God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. All right. Is there anyone else here for citizen speak? I don't see anyone in the front. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. All right. So we can have acknowledgements next. I forgot to say, if it's all right with you, Mr. Jett, that we can take off our masks while we're speaking. Okay, good. Thank you, sir. All right. So I just want to start off by saying that we had a fabulous retirement ceremony out in the outdoor classroom or the courtyard. I want to thank the retirees who were able to make it. It was a beautiful evening. Mr. Jett shared some thoughts and feelings from their colleagues, coworkers, and longtime friends, and I want to wish all of them luck in their future endeavors. I'm sure Mr. Jett might address that in the superintendent's report, I don't know, but I just thought I would mention it because it was so lovely. And now we would like to thank someone as a school committee, Mr. Mike Lynch, if he would be so kind as to come to the table. We would like to thank Mr. Mike Lynch for his work all these years on Milton Access TV, and particularly the work he's done for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Ada Rosemarin. She has some comments for this evening.
Thank you.
He said it was okay.
So Mike Lynch is the Executive Director of Milton Access TV, where he's designed and supervised the renovation and construction of their TV studio that's located at Pierce Middle School. He's been Executive Director of Milton Access TV since 2012. He's responsible for the studio's administrative operations, budgets, employee and volunteer management, filming and programming, and he reports to a 9-member executive board on which the school committee is represented by me the last few years. Milton Access TV schedule reflects wide experience in his wide experience in directing, filming, programming, and generating ideas, public and candidate forums, town elections, local meetings, features and educational series and cooking shows, authors programs, talk shows, film critics, children's shows, and more. And I was lucky enough to get help from Mike Lynch filming the So You're Going to Kindergarten video back in 2012, which is a long time ago, but Mike was really just wonderful being down on the floor with his cameras filming kindergartners and helping us with editing and putting the video together. In 2002, Mike received the Community Builder Award in Milton for his work with Best Buddies and his interaction and activities for children with special needs. And I had just so happened to be honored to receive the same award in that same year. And I was so impressed with Mike, who was still in high school at the time when he received that award. I think he was the first high school student to receive the Community Builder Award. So he's had these skills of building community for a long time. Mike grew up here in Milton, and at the age of 15, he began as a volunteer at Milton Access TV, working on the show Milton Speaks. He's a graduate of Milton High School in 2003 and went on to Quinnipiac University, graduating in 2007 with a BA in Mass Communications. Mike has been the go-to person for the entire town during the pandemic. He recorded and made available remote public meetings on Zoom, and many of them, and oversaw the technical end of 2 remote town meetings this year, which, again, enormous kudos to you. Mike is the grandson of the late, great Bernie Lynch, who also committed many years as a volunteer in Milton, including on the board of Milton Access TV, and Mike follows in some wonderful footsteps. Mike leaves big shoes to fill in his role as Executive Director of Milton Access TV, but we wish you well in all of your future endeavors. And on behalf of the school committee, we want to thank you for all you've done for the children, the families, and the public schools here in Milton.
Thank you.
And we have a little gift for you, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you so much.
Would anyone like to say anything? Thank you. Feel free to say anything. Beverly, go ahead.
I want you to understand how many people in the town appreciate what you did to bring us the first many years of your career, and especially this last year. There were people who normally would not be civically engaged if it wasn't for your capacity to make our town meetings, our school committee, and the many other committees available to people. And I hope you know how much it was appreciated, and I wish you all the best.
Anyone else? Mr. Jeff?
I would like to add, I had the luxury of knowing Mike many years, and started out to Pierce when he worked and helped design and put together the studio over at the Pierce and then at the high school. And then the partnership with this area right here, along with the technology and having our students have access to this as well. I think it was a great opportunity in addition to being a conduit between the Milton Public Schools and the community and just providing the community as a whole with information. So without question, and there are times that I've called late, last minute, and he's always come to the rescue. In fact, we just did that last night, 5 minutes before, and he says, "I got you." So I do want to thank you because that's a testament to your commitment and dedication, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavor. And I know you're going on to work in the family business, so kudos to you. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know what to say. I'm not good at these things, but thank you. I've really enjoyed working with the school department. Milton Access TV has a really special relationship with the schools. We're housed in one of your buildings. And I know that we've always been involved, but I feel as the years go on, especially this past year, anytime the school department had an event or any one of the individual schools had an event, I usually was the first phone call. To see how we could get that out to the community. So thank you for working with us and allowing us to do that. I am confident that the staff I have trained and nurtured over the past 12 years will continue on. So you shouldn't notice a missing step or anything. And I, because I love this town so much and I love Milton, and my departure from Milton Cable is a little sudden and sooner than I thought, I am going to continue on and serve on the board in a volunteer capacity. So to continue on my grandfather's legacy for Milton Cable. So I'm not going too far. Please know if you ever need anything, I'm here. But thank you, and the gift was unnecessary, but thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. All right, thank you so much. All right, all right.
Chair Everhard, can
Oh,
I
yes.
mention one thing that
Of
wasn't
course.
mentioned? And that is, I believe it was last year, although the years are blurring together now with the pandemic, we took the school committee meetings on the road.
That's right.
So we went to every single school and broadcast from there, not in our place here where everything's already set up.
That's right.
So Mike and his team had a huge heavy lift to just get everything ready if we were at Collicott, Cunningham, Glover, Tucker, or Pierce. And so I want to thank him for that because I know it was a heavy lift.
I totally forgot about that. That's right. I think everyone was, yes, that was, thank you. Charlene was ready to do us in then as well. But- Yes, go ahead. Of course, of course.
I'd also like to thank Mike. He's been very helpful to me in my capacity on the town as well as my change over to the schools. But also, every bit as important, I want to thank Mike and his colleagues for their service to the parents when we couldn't attend hockey games and basketball games and our children's events. They were there to broadcast them over YouTube or whatever vehicle. And
Yeah.
as a parent, to be able to see my kid from my home when I couldn't see them in person, that was huge. And I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there that feel the same way. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to also say a special thank you for that, Mike, because I do think you and your team always go above and beyond, and you're going to be very missed. And thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. They've also been streaming like fifth grade days and
Yeah.
graduation and the award ceremony, and yeah, this has been quite the year. And you were definitely our partner in this journey, so we miss you, but we know you're here, so we can find you. We can find you. All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you, Mike. All right, Ms. Superintendent Jett, you are up next with Superintendent's Report.
So thank you. Before I get into the report, I know you alluded to
Yeah.
the celebration and acknowledgement we had prior to the school committee meeting. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to announce the retirees from Milton Public Schools this academic year in this setting. I won't get into all the bios. We will be sharing the bios with Milton Times and hopefully broadcast that out. But I do want to acknowledge 10 people at the Milton Public Schools that worked hard over the years and are now enjoying retirement. The first is Barbara Palkanitis, the longtime payroll officer for the Milton Public Schools. We have Jeannie Scroy, longtime nurse. She's over at the Collycott Elementary School. Allison Joyce, who was a partner in crime in the same vicinity at the Cunningham School. They shared an office. That's Allison Joyce. Mary Down Tipping, a longtime special education teacher at the middle school and elementary level. Mary McCarthy over at the Glover School. Joan Dow, Mary Boykin, two of our teachers who taught remote this year. As I said earlier, they taught 2 different grade levels, the entire curriculum for the entire year, and we commend them for their hard work, dedication, and commitment, not only to the students, but the Milton Public Schools and the families of our students. Carol Hunt, longtime food service personnel worker. She was a tremendous asset to the Pierce Middle School in a bright moment in the students' day as they walked through and they saw her every day in the cafeteria. Of course, Glenn Pavlicek, Assistant Superintendent of Business for the Milton Public Schools. And finally, Mary Gormley, the former superintendent, 46 years that she contributed her life, blood, sweat, and tears to the Milton Public Schools. And I just would like to take this opportunity to thank all of those folks for their years of service, their leadership, their mentorship, and everything that they've done to brought the school to this point. And we hope that we could carry on that legacy in a positive way. So I just want to thank all of our retirees at this point. So thank you. At this point on the agenda, and I know a lot of people have asked for an update on the equity audit, and we were hoping that we would have an opportunity to do that this evening. We're still waiting for the final version of that report.
Okay.
But at this point in time, I would like to ask Somali Proc Martin, who is the Senior Equity Director of Education, to come to the seat, and she would give us a quick update
Great.
on the equity audit.
Is it all right if I take my mask?
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
please.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. Our projected timeline of the presentation for the equity audit report will be in July 21st. We are still working with Cambridge to finalize the report and create a presentation that is going to be easily more digestible instead of just a whole bunch of numbers, but actually make sense of what those numbers really mean and what it looks like. So that's the update on the report. But I would also like to publicly announce the 5 community members that actually made into the steering committee. We had a intense training with our selection committee that many people applied to be part of. I think my selection committee actually spent almost 16 hours together developing relationships, being able to have discourse, looking through rubrics, and identifying characteristics and diverse components of what we want to see in the steering committee. So the 5 that made it to the final realm and is part of the team, the first I would like to say is I'm so proud that it's a student. Giselle DeMonche is, and I hope I am pronouncing that name correctly, and I'm sorry if I'm not, Giselle. 8th grade student from Pierce, part of the MIAC member and also a MSAPC member. We have Shelley Sturdivant, community member and parent of 8th grade twins and a member of the Pierce DEI committee. Mac D'Alessandro, Milton resident and parent of 2 Milton High School students. Meg Matthews, parent of 2 Tucker students, former Tucker Site Council and Tucker board member and MARC member. And Monique DeBarros, which is a Milton resident and parent as well. So I'd just like to congratulate you all in public and saying, welcome to the team. We're about to really embrace the work and dive in. That's all the report I have.
That's great.
Thank you.
Anyone have any comments, questions? Feel free, go ahead.
I just want to say, I know most of the members of that team, interestingly, and you've got a great team there. That's excellent, and thanks for putting in all that hard work and, making sure that you got a hate to say the right fit, but the right team that you were looking for this equity audit. I do have a question for the chair. When is our meeting in July?
So we were discussing that
Okay.
when we get down to,
Okay, I just wondered if it was going to be after
Chair's
the
report.
21st, yes.
yeah.
So I just want to put it out there that I didn't personally select this group of people. What happened was I put out to the community an opportunity for people to be part of the selection committee, and all who applied to be part of the selection committee had to commit to a time commitment around professional development and being able to, work together, team, and all that other stuff that we worked on. And that committee used a rubric and calibrated on the rubric to determine who the steering committee members are. I had no say. I was just part of the facilitating process. So I just want to put that out there that these 5 actually came up through this intense process of being selected. So I also would like to put a plug in, if there are any educators in Milton listening, please apply. We are doing phase 2 of the steering committee application process. The application was sent with Mr. Jett's information separately. If you also can't find that email, please feel free to contact me. We are looking for educators in Milton to be part of the team. We can't do this work without that crew. So we got to do that together.
What kind of time commitment will it require?
From members?
Yeah.
So we're looking at a 2-year time commitment because can't do work around equity or work that requires diversity perspectives and inputs and, listening to all voices and respecting people's rights and opinions without building a community where you can have that type of conversation and that type of pushback and that type of, thinking in a way where it's no one's bullied or no one is afraid to say what it is that they believe in and how they think things should go. So that requires relationship building. So that's the reason why we're looking at a 2-year time frame for that commitment. Hopefully we can scaffold new members in and still have old members so that can continue to transfer with some mentoring. But we are going to be doing a lot of professional development. The thing about equity is you can't bring people to the table without equipping them to do the work that you're expecting them to do at the table. You can't assume people are coming with skill sets. We have to identify what skill sets each person needs in order for them to work together in a way to move that work. So the process itself is a process that we need to consider when we're talking about equity and not just the result. And that's the reason why that 2-year is so important. And there will be a 2-day retreat that is going to be required in the summer because it's about, again, building relationships and knowledge base and learning how to data dive, using protocols so it's not subjective, it's objective. There's all of these training pieces that have to come to play. So when we have students at the table, we have to equip the students to be able to be at the table with fidelity. If we have a mom who has never stepped into any type of work in this manner, we have to equip that mom to be able to be at the table to provide us with the feedback that we need to in order for us to move this work in an equitable manner. So yes, there is a time commitment. So we're looking at a 2-day retreat. The first 3 months will be 2 2-hour workshops each month. And that's in addition to like our actual meetings to go over things, but the workshops to build the skills. And then we're going to continue with 2-hour workshops every month. And the first year will be focusing on building skill sets, getting everyone able to be at the table the way they need to be at the table, and building relationships, and then also data diving and identifying what the needs are and how that fits into the district and the what's the word I'm looking for? So we have the equity review, and then we have the, why did I just go blank?
You mean the plan, the strategic plan?
The
or-
strategic, yeah, thank you. The strategic plan, yes, and culminating those 2 pieces together and making sure that it's being aligned and that all students are being served. I know there's a huge question on equity and how some people are using equity synonymous with race, and that's not it at all. If you are reading any of my newsletters, the last week's newsletter actually has a little bit about equity and some educational videos on what equity is. So feel free to plug into that. It's on the website to ask. And I'm always open to having a conversation because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there or misunderstanding or whatever the case may be.
Yes, Lizzie, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Somali, for this update. And I'm really excited to see the work of the steering committee going forward, and also glad to hear that educators will still have the opportunity to participate. I just have one sort of question or comment. I know that it was wonderful the number of community members who applied to be on the steering committee, including a lot of parents with, you know, very important lived experience and also professional experience and expertise in leading change for equity in other settings. And I understand for the various reasons you just laid out, not everybody who applied is able to be included, but I'm just wondering, what are the plans to sort of give perhaps other opportunities for these people who have clearly indicated their commitment and their interest in being part of this conversation and our continued work on this area? What other opportunities will there be for them to stay engaged, to be invited to participate perhaps in other ways, even if they were not, you know, among the small number included in the steering committee?
Great
Thanks.
question. Okay, so I will answer that this way. So yes, I am the Senior Director of Equity, but I cannot do this work by myself. I'm always tapping into other resources, other groups, other members, other expertise to say, hey, I need help with this. That's going to happen again when yes, we have this steering committee, but the steering committee is going to tap into other groups to do the work. There will be plenty of opportunities to engage in this work that it's critical to making sure that all learners, staff and students are, equipped with what they need to do to be successful and to have those types of opportunities. And that looks differently, and the stages and the phases of this work is going to look differently, and that is all going to be the responsibility of the steering committee of critically thinking about how do we involve stakeholders in this process and continue to involve stakeholders in an authentic way. I want to emphasize authentic. Again, we can bring whoever we want to bring to the table, but if we're not doing our due diligence to equip them to be at the table with fidelity, then it's not authentic. So we have to strategically think about what that looks like. So plenty of opportunity will always be there, so.
And if I could just add one piece, Somali and I had a conversation about the potential rollout, and we're trying to just wait until we're absolutely certain when Cambridge Education will finish that. But in terms of community conversations, people might not have to make that 10-hour, 12-hour, 2-year commitment, whatever the case may be. But these are going to be ongoing conversations that we're going to have with the community. And to Somali's point, and she's reminded us all over and over again, this is going to be a fluid situation, and it's going to be an ongoing situation. And people will have entryways into the process over the course of time throughout the year, whether it's your DEI groups, whether your PTO groups, your MFE group, whatever the case may be. And then just parent information sessions. We're talking about the possibility of having some, whether it's the back to school night, which is the most heavily kickoff night of the year. And obviously that time's limited, but how can you put pieces and bits out there where people understand? The one thing I will say is when information comes out, we talked about different venues to get the information out and making it user-friendly or community-friendly. What I'm asking people not to do is to take information from Facebook that's put on Facebook. It may not always have the proper context. If you have a question, reach out to the Milton Public Schools, to Somali, so we don't run into a situation where it is misleading or people are misinterpreting what's being presented.
Yeah, and I would definitely like to add on, the statement that was made earlier by Ron or Rob? Oh,
Mr.
Rob,
Rob.
I'm sorry, Rob, about, the bullying component. And, we're all human beings trying to do this work, trying to be the best that we can be and do better and be better always. And the conversation should come in a way where it's not one side being bullied to the other side. It's about working together to understand the differences and where we all are coming from. And then using that information to ensure that all students are going to be served and provided opportunities to be successful, and all learners, even staff too. So my ask is, let's approach the conversation, but let's approach it in a way where it's respectable on both ends and not about bullying one another. And I just want to state for myself, being an immigrant coming to this country, speaking English as a second language, I love America. And I don't know what the narrative is about me out there, but I will say, I love America. I love what America has done for me and my family. I can't even talk about it without getting teary-eyed. And I love myself as much too, but that doesn't mean that there are things about me that I don't think about improving every day. So thinking about improving bits and pieces of me doesn't negate the fact that I don't love myself. So I love America. I just think there are parts of America that we just need to do better and be better. And that's why I do the work. So I just want to set the record clear.
And I personally, for my own self, want to thank you for stepping into this role during this time that was so difficult. And you stepped into this role with so much grace and so much kindness. You listen to everyone, you respect every opinion, you work with people no matter how they feel, no matter what's being said in the community. And I know that you have the children at the center and the community at the center, and I am your ally in this work. And we will make things better for all students in this community. We will honor and respect the traditions of every member of our community, and we will work to help everyone understand what we mean by the words we use and the lingo that we use so that everyone feels a part of the conversation. So just myself personally, and perhaps may I speak on behalf of the whole school committee and the administration when I say that you stepped into a role that was very difficult at a time when we didn't do such a great job of helping that. And we are all working to keep children at the center, to move this, to keep this town its honor and tradition, but to make things better for everybody. So I can't thank you enough for the hard work that you're doing, and I look forward to the work that we're all going to do together as a community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And lastly, I just want to say, we all want to move forward. We just want to make sure everyone is moving forward, not just some.
Exactly, right. Thank you,
So
Director
I will say that.
Martins. We look forward to the
Thank
work
you.
to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're locked out. Keys. All right, thank you, Director Craig Martins. All right, Mr. Jett, you're on again,
Okay.
sorry.
Next on the agenda is the enrollment. We talked a little bit about this, and although I'm gonna present some numbers, I'll throw a little caveat in there today because we were just doing another round of registrations, and just today alone, we added in 30 more students
Oh, man.
to our count. As of last week, and I will continue to update these numbers as we go, last Friday, we were at 4,390 students. Today alone was 30 students added to that, but we had a couple of folks sprinkle in on Monday and Tuesday for next academic year. The Collicott, at the time of the tallies for next year, were gonna be 594. Cunningham was 614, that include the pre-K program. Glover's 594. Tucker, 447th with pre-K, Pierce Middle School's 990, and then Milton High School's 1,151. When you start to look at the lower grades, next year, as of Monday, today's Wednesday, and we still had to place a few more students, we're up to about 350 kindergarten students coming into the Milton Public Schools. It is a challenge, and we had close to about 48 students out of that 4,390 that exited the Milton Public Schools that are coming back to the Milton Public Schools. They took a one-year hiatus, which we all knew about, and we anticipated that folks would be coming in. But I do want to, thank you, I do want to make a public acknowledgement, because we've talked about this throughout the last 8 months. August is one of our biggest months for new students moving in.
Oh, boy.
And so I just share that with the general public, because that may be a strain on us, but that's a number that's unknown at this time. So I do put that out there publicly. We're at June 16th, and those are our numbers. So we're currently close to about 4,420-something students as of today.
Okay.
And last week, so that's about a 60, 61, 63 student increase from last year's enrollment as of today, and it doesn't account for any move-ins between tomorrow and the start of the new school year.
Anyone have any questions about the enrollment? I will say that, many districts are actually seeing a decline in enrollment. I just find it interesting. Of course, we have a wonderful school system, so people, of course, would be coming back and moving into town, but yeah, that's,
James,
Yeah,
I do
I
have-
think
Yeah.
some other entities in town were predicting that, our numbers went down a little bit in the pandemic because some people took their students out and sent them to private schools, but this proves that our numbers are incredibly high and going to climb. So, yeah, and we're gonna once again run over the number of kindergarten classes that the schools were built for. We have every year for many years, so that just increases the problem again and again. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's nothing anyone here doesn't know, but.
So to speak to that point, I'm sorry, Member Ross Denny, to speak to that point, the vast majority of students that left that came back were at the kindergarten level.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of the dislike for the Milton Public Schools.
Right.
In my eyes, it was because it was a convenience. They had the financial means to
Right.
put them in a private placement. But 23 students, the largest out of all of the grades, 23 students returning for grade 1, with 10 new students coming into grade 1. So you're talking about just right there in grade 1 alone, there's 33 students, and then our kindergarten grades, numbers are up as well. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Earlier this year, we talked about the plan to use the extra space that was identified at each one of the elementary schools. Do you anticipate that we're going to use all of it? It was like 2 classrooms online at the Cunningham, and then it was going to gradually increase as we went into the next school year. Are we going to use what we anticipated, or are we into what we thought we would need for 2022?
So as of right now, I think we are good, but what I cannot anticipate is the new enrollments and what grade that they move in and what school they move in. So right now, we have some space at the Cunningham Collycott that we identified, that we're finalizing those orders under the capital request. So we finalized that. We did that the same at the Pierce Middle School. We did it at the Glover School. We converted 2 spaces. Bob Patterson has just ordered some of the materials, or put in the order for some of the materials, the technology, to make sure that happened, and the same thing for Tucker. So as of right now, we anticipated a higher number, so we should be good for the next year. But like I said, I just can't predict. It's a fluid situation in terms of what transpires in between July and August. But I'm hoping and praying that we're in good shape. But I will say, to Chair Abahat's comment, there's something about the Milton Public Schools and the community that's attracting a lot of people.
So the numbers at Pierce are, sorry, Ed, if you wanted to say something, that's a lot, wow, like 990,
Isn't that what they have now?
Yeah.
know what it has
Yeah.
now?
It's about what they have now, and I think what happens, if you look at it, is only like 161 student difference between the high
That's
school.
what I'm saying.
And we have,
Yeah,
you have 4 grades at the high school and 3 at the middle school. So it is a challenge.
well, thank you. Go ahead, Ada, sorry, I didn't see you, I
Yeah,
apologize.
I was just gonna say, this conversation will continue into our school building committee report, because we've looked
Great, okay,
closely at the
perfect. Okay.
enrollment projections and the ins and outs of enrollment and how that affects our application to the Mass School Building Authority. And Sean O'Rourke, chair of the school building committee, put together a graphic that I think really tells the story well, so
Okay.
that people understand exactly what situation we're in right now and what the enrollment projections tell us and don't tell us, what the factors are. in
All
that.
right, all right, we look forward to that report after. Okay, and then I think we have one more agenda item, dual enrollment.
It was a dual enrollment, if folks recall, 2 school committee meetings ago, Milton High School Principal Karen Cahill did a presentation regarding the dual enrollment opportunity we had or we're working on with Quincy College and Curry College. There were a lot of questions that were raised at the last meeting prior to any vote being taken. And unfortunately, some of those questions are still remaining, particularly with Curry College, and we understand it. It is a challenge. It's a busy time of year for folks. I believe, do you guys have the responses in your packet? If not, I will go over some of them.
I have them here on my.
Okay, so I do apologize. One of the question was, the MOU states that the cost, this is for Curry College, is $375 per credit hour, in the class is 3 credit hours. Is that a clerical error? Unfortunately, Principal Cahill was still trying to get the confirmation on that with this, for that specific question, and has not gotten it as of earlier today.
Okay.
The question, a second question for the Curry College MOU was, will participation in this course count towards the minimum ELA requirements to graduation, or is it considered elective? It will count towards the senior English class requirement at Milton High School. That was one answer. The agreement says qualified participants will have earned senior year 12th grade status with the B average, 3.0 cumulative grade point average. What does this mean? Basically, in order to participate, the senior at Milton High School must have a B average at Milton High School to kind of participate in that program. So there's still some unknowns about the Curry College, which we understand that might make it a little more challenging to do the vote. But as far as Quincy College is concerned, will the courses be delivered by Milton Public School faculty and staff at the high school with the knowledge and the content expertise? The answer to that is yes. Under Quincy College, if yes, is a portion of the tuition coming back to the Milton Public Schools. The courses are taught by Milton Public School faculty, but there's no tuition coming back to Milton Public Schools. But the teachers afforded the opportunity to add the title of adjunct teacher to their resume, as they will be teaching a course for Quincy College. So unfortunately, we're not getting money back, but it is an opportunity for our teachers. And I know that's kind of a tough sell, but it is an opportunity for our teachers and our students to gain that. So at this point in time, unless there's other questions, whether you wanted to vote to allow, well, I don't want to make a motion to that, but you can think about an initial thing with still time to answer and work those details out, or we can continue to explore those opportunities.
I just had one follow-up question related to if a student, I have a feeling that, in fact, Curry College is going to be the 3 times 375.
Yeah.
It is what it is. For kids who can't afford it, do we talk about whether or not there's some sort of funds that can be raised to help subsidize it? Because my concern is that is literally going to be a restrictive opportunity if you can't afford a $1,000 class. While it's cheaper than a 4-year university, it's a sizable ask for a family.
So that's a very good question. I will say yes. Do I have the specifics on that right now? No. I think that the general public should understand the generosity of the Copeland Foundation. It provides us money every year to provide the PSATs to all students in school. We also do a support system and provide financial support for our students that may need it in terms of advanced placement courses. We have always tried to find ways to do that, and I'm proud to say this past year, even during the pandemic, we had over 360 high school students take over 800 and something AP exams. So I know there's a lot of conversations about lowering expectations, but the reverse is happening in the Milton Public Schools. When students matriculate through the grades, they do have the option to take these more rigorous courses. And the final thing I would say about that, those AP courses are open enrollment. Any student can take them. As long as they commit to the contract, do the work over the summer, and sustain and try to scaffold and support for those who need it. Yes.
I would like to table this until we get answers to
Mhm.
some of the questions, like the question that Beverly raised, as well as, my own particular opinion about this situation with Quincy is that if our teachers are doing the teaching, and we're just sending money to Quincy and providing them with a cohort of students, our students are getting something out of it, yes, but it seems ridiculous to me that that's the situation, and there's no funds coming back to the Milton Public Schools. However, I would like questions answered before I personally vote on this. If we decide to vote, I'll abstain.
Lizzie, go ahead.
Just a question on that. Is there any sort of negative consequence to delaying the vote? Does it compromise our ability to move forward with these opportunities sort of during the summer if we were to delay voting on it?
And I would, at this point in time, I would agree with Dr. Craighead, because I can't answer that. And and most of our students have already selected their courses as part of their course of studies, so I can't imagine it would, but I can't say that with confidence that it will or it won't. For this academic year. It could be for the second semester or second part of the year as part of something, but I can't answer that.
So I think when Ms. Cahill had sent the answers to the questions, she did mention, she said, would we consider separating the two and vote for perhaps just the Quincy College one, since it's clear what the answers are there. The Curry College one, the answers are not clear. But I hear what you're saying, Elaine, that you have concerns about the fact that teachers are teachers are teaching the course, but there's no funds coming back either to the teacher or to the district. I'm
Right.
trying to.
The students are paying the money to Quincy College so that they will have a college credit on their transcript, which is great for the students, but it's also great for Quincy College because they're not providing anything except for the credit on the transcript.
Right, right. So I think, I want to thank, as we did last time, and I know you all agree with me, thank Ms. Cahill for her innovation
Yeah.
in trying to move something like this forward. I think probably there's a lot of stumbling as we try to figure something like this out. I'm not sure what something like this would look like, what we would agree to that would be beneficial to both students and to the district. So I think the only barrier, Lizzie, would be that if not voting on it, it won't be in the program of studies, and the opportunity would occur later in the year, perhaps like in January. So I think if we have questions, and they're reasonable questions, all the questions that were raised the last time are reasonable. I just don't know, I think we would either have to someone would have to probably be a part of that conversation with Ms. Cahill and the school, and I know look to other districts who do this, and what are the benefits back and forth for each party involved.
I can share just as a personal example.
Go ahead, Beverly, yeah.
And I don't anticipate that would happen in Milton. Let's start with that. I grew up in upstate New York, where the University of Rochester and Rochester Institute of Technology had land that was owned by our town. And the relationship was, if you had a B, you could take those classes for free. I don't know if there was a pilot, this is upstate New York, mind you.
Right.
But there was this level of reciprocity. And I don't want to delay the opportunity for our students to have college credit. But I agree with Elaine, I would love to have had this hammered out, because if it was, I would happily approve it.
Right.
One of the town meeting members a couple years ago asked me to find out what contract they used. And I was, in all fairness, I called my town, they were not as willing to share those materials. But I do think there is an opportunity for negotiation. I just feel bad about the delay for students. But I would rather have something firm that we felt comfortable with before rushing in. Because maybe it's not a matter of there's a cash disbursement coming back to Milton Public Schools, but maybe it's free PD for our teachers, or there's some sort of negotiations. You're getting a cohort that you didn't have to earn, you didn't have to recruit.
Right.
Milton Public Schools are giving it to you, and in response to that, you'll get free meeting space, or you can get, there's something that Quincy College may be willing to do that's not onerous, because they're a small school, but something that shows we appreciate that Milton wants to partner with us, and that you're gonna give us a cohort of kids, and in return for that, your kids are gonna get college credit, and we're gonna do this for the Milton Public Schools.
Or to address your other question, perhaps subsidize, a certain number of students
Yeah.
who can't afford to take
That's
the
a good
class
idea.
in return for what we're providing for Quincy here. And I do want to go on record. I mean, I advise students on the college level. I have been a faculty member on the college level, looking at transcripts for many, many years now. These are great programs. I am not trying to hold this up. I'm not trying to put a stone wall up or anything like that. I just want it to be an equitable situation.
No, I think that those are very fair and valid questions.
Those are valid
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
And the other thing, we had a tentative conversation last year, and then lost, 2 years ago, and lost traction.
Yeah.
And even if it was something that helped us with space, we're allowing our students to leave as a perk for seniors to help with the enrollment,
Right.
but they take the class at a college university and get that college experience at least for one class. But we could definitely get these answers to you.
And maybe one of us
It's
should
up front.
reach out to Ms. Cahill,
Yeah.
as the body responsible for accepting the contract, or maybe one of us can reach out to her and say, give her our suggestions or ideas, and then work with her to make
And
it.
I wrote them
Yeah.
down in
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
now
Yeah.
that the year's coming to a close,
Yeah.
maybe we have a little time to
You might have some time to do some work.
do it with fidelity.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I think we're all in agreement that this is where we want to go for students, right? And this was, even when we were doing the surveys looking for the superintendent, this was something parents were interested in sort of thinking about for our town. So I thank you to Ms. Cahill and her team, and we look forward to having an agreement that we all feel comfortable with. So thank you, all of you, for your thoughts and suggestions. I'm so impressed with everyone's thought process. All right, so on to the chair report, so that would be me. In your packet, there are some Milton School Committee subcommittee suggestions from what we talked about the last time. You can look them over. I think Lizzie already pointed out that it was Beverly who wanted to be on the consolidated joint town school subcommittees. Is that right, Beverly? Was that you that wanted to be on that, not Lizzie, right? Sorry about
That's
that,
right,
guys.
and the Inclusion Task Force.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That is correct, as well as the Inclusion Task Force.
Thank you. Thank you. That was the one piece that I had not written down. I had a question mark there, so thank you for helping me remember. You'll notice that Beverly had suggested 2 new advisory committees for the school committee to consider. And I had a conversation with Beverly and I had a separate conversation with Mr. Jett and Ada. And so what we decided is at our retreat, we would like to discuss those 2 committees further, because there are two task force that are attached to the strategic plan that address both data, and one of them, and the other is curriculum. And so as we think about what things are going to look like in 2021, 2022 and beyond, what the plan's gonna look like, what do we wanna do about that? How do we want to take the work that people are already doing as part of the strategic plan? Do we want to separate that? What do we want to do as a committee, along with the leadership of the superintendents, to really firm that out? In addition to incorporating the quality review information that we're going to get from Director Prack-Martin. So I think I would like to put those 2 committees on the side until we get to our retreat and discuss them as a conjunction with, separate from the strategic plan. And so, if that's agreeable,
Sounds good,
I
yeah.
appreciate. I've been doing some research too about other towns that have curriculum and instruction committees, and trying to get some more information about that we can bring to the retreat as well, and to think about, because there are some things we really want to think about. There's a lot on the table right now in terms of what's being reviewed, the math curriculum they want to do a review of, the history, like those are in the cycle that we have as we do curriculum reviews, just because you might want to get new curriculum, right? So a lot of things to think about. But those two aside, these were the things that we discussed at our last school committee meeting, except for the changes. Thank you to those of you who suggested them. Yes,
Chair
Dr.
Everhart,
Cricket.
I'm willing to chair the policy subcommittee unless somebody else wants to do it.
Right, so I was talking to Lizzie, Dr. Carroll, and she was also saying she would, even though it's her first year.
Okay.
I think that would be wonderful. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I
okay.
think it's great. Policy is my favorite subcommittee, as anyone who, and not that I don't love finance. I love finance.
Yeah.
Love finance. But I love policy because it really helps to move the district and to really set guidelines for everyone. So if Lizzie, you would like to chair, and we would be supporting you always, of course, in that capacity. And Dr. Craighead will chair finance. Dr. Carroll would chair policy. Member White would chair health and wellness. And then we're not doing transportation and traffic right now. Facilities would be members Rosemarin and White, and member Rosemarin would chair that. Strategic Planning Committee right now is currently member Rosemarin. And we'll just leave it at that for now. School Building Project Committee is member Rosemarin and members White. And member Rosemarin serves as a co-chair of that committee with a community member.
Vice chair.
Dr. Carroll is going to be the liaison to our Student Advisory Committee, and that's going to be a really rich experience, I think, because there's lots of opportunities in town happening around that. And then Drs. Craighead and Drs. Carroll agreed to be part of the bargaining team for our union negotiations. Beverly Rosteni would like to do Town School Consolidation Committee, and Dr. Elaine Craighead and Member White would do Town Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
Oh,
Yes.
Can I pause you there?
Yep.
I think we only get one rep, so
Oh,
Betty
you're gonna
wanted
do
to
it.
do it, so
But you've been doing it, though, and
I
you wanted
have
to
been
continue,
doing it.
right?
I did want to
Okay, so you're going to
continue,
continue then. That's fine. She can do it next year.
but- Oh, she does have next year.
Yeah,
I'm-
right,
yes.
exactly. All right. We don't have anyone for the Mountain, I'm sorry, that's just me, I'm done, you know me with my pen. Milton Foundation for Education, we need to discuss that. Member Rosemarin will be staying on for MPEG. And then security, we put a table on that for now, and then Inclusion Task Force, Beverly Rosteni, right?
Yeah, and I'd also like to serve on the MFE.
Oh, you would? Oh,
Oh, my goodness.
I love the
Thank you,
MFE,
Bev.
also served on
Thank
that
you,
board for many years.
Beverly.
And then payroll warrant, Dr. Craighead has been signing both the payroll warrant and the vendor warrants. Do you still wish to do that, Dr. Craighead?
Yes.
Okay. We appreciate that tremendously. And then, of course, the appointed representatives of the 5-year Financial Plan Committee, would that be Superintendent Dexter? It used to be Dr.
It used to be
Pavlicek.
Dr. Pavlicek,
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
while
we'll
she's
put her
out
in
of the
there.
room,
While
let's-
she's out of the room?
That's right, yeah, she's not there, so she's.
Okay,
that's right.
and then, Mr. Superintendent Jett, you would be the Special Education Collaborative attending those
Okay.
meetings? Okay. All right, so that's what it currently stands at. I don't think we have to vote on them. I think we just
Yeah, I don't think
print
we
them and
usually
make
do.
them available to the community. And then after our retreat, we will figure out what we want to do about the other two committees. All right, and I would like to help on policy. I know there's a lot of people on policy, but I can figure it out. We can figure it out. All right, thank you all. I'm looking forward to a really productive year. I think we have wonderful committees and members.
You're elected, Amy.
And yeah, you have been
We
elected to
signed
be
you up for everything while you were out.
5-year Financial Plan Committee representative. Okay, so that's the subcommittee list. I will neaten it up and get it off to Charlene for a final approval for now. This will to be continued. Then the last thing on here that I'll talk about is the retreat and the school committee meeting. So apparently I was wrong, shocking, that we usually don't meet in July. We usually just meet in August. The Wednesday before the school opens. So when we had our meeting the last time, we said we were gonna have a meeting on July 21st.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because we wanted the time to plan, so we wouldn't go into the beginning of the school year
Right.
having no
So
idea.
Right.
can we still use the 21st as a planning, but according to Director Prack Martins, though, what about the information from the quality review?
We would have it by then,
I-
right?
We should definitely have it by then. They should have it earlier. And the reason why we chose the 21st, because I thought we were doing the school committee
Me too,
meeting on the 21st.
yeah, that's my fault, right,
So
yeah.
that's
What I
why.
didn't
Yeah.
get, the
Okay.
connection, okay.
But could we use the 21st then for part of our retreat? I know that Dr. Carroll has commitments earlier in the day, as do I. I'll be teaching from 8 to 1
I'll
every
be
day, we're not
working.
teaching.
I'll be
Yeah,
working, but I can take off early.
yeah, and we can come for a later part of the day. Okay,
The afternoon and maybe.
or, yeah, I mean,
evening.
Dr., Lizzie's busy until like 4-ish?
I couldn't get here before 5:30.
Right. The other thing that, oh, here she comes, Mother White. The other thing is we can do some of it remote, since that was passed by, it would be open to the public, people could come just like they would on the Zoom.
Right.
But we could also do some of it remote, because
Yeah.
that was approved today, right?
Yeah.
And that might make things easier?
Congratulations.
Am I, no, yes, maybe?
It's just,
I'm
it's
sure it
usually
was.
easier when we can sit
Okay.
in a room and hammer things
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So can we stick with the 21st, so then, for at least part of that time, in the later part of the day, have our retreat?
Yeah,
Okay. Is that agreeable to everyone, the 21st?
Yep, to talk about the retreat.
and if it's at 5, if it starts at
Evening,
5:30,
the
that's
evening
great,
of
I don't have to
21st.
take any time
Here
off,
it's
so.
at-
Perfect. All right, we'll do it later on. We're probably going to have to add another day, half a day,
Yeah.
because I do think we have a lot to think about.
Yes.
And, but if we, at least we get started on the 21st, that would be helpful. And Director Prack Martins had some suggestions about helping someone who could help facilitate the process. Or, and if any of you have any suggestions, that would be great.
If anything, I wanted to know, besides us, the 6 elected members, will Superintendent Jett,
Yes.
Assistant Superintendent
Yep,
Dexter, and
yep, and it's,
that's
and it, of course,
fabulous.
anytime we meet, it's an open meeting, so.
Everybody.
Yeah.
That's good.
People have come in the past. All right, so that's wonderful. And then I will talk to Charlene about what the actual date is in August for that meeting. I'm sorry to say that I get 2 public school systems, the dates that schools are starting confused. But I will ask her. All right, thank you so much. I'm done talking now. Yes,
Chair?
yes.
I know that you wiped out my finance report because there's no vendor warrant tonight, but I did want to just say something that'll take 1 minute
Okay.
about finance. Is that all
1
right?
minute, go ahead.
All right. I just want to let everyone know that the school committee is working with the select board, specifically the 2 finance committees are working together. The town has graciously offered some of their CARES Act funding that has to be spent by June 30th to the schools. And Karen Praval, who is the Director of Finance for the town, and Assistant Superintendent of Business Amy Dexter have been working together to figure out what of the schools' expenses related to the pandemic could be funded out of that money from the town. So it's in process.
Great.
That's it.
Could I just make one correction? The
Sure.
CARES Act money has to be spent by December 31st, but we're trying to close out some things by
Oh, okay.
June 30th.
Right.
But same.
I did the same thing.
Thank you.
You're not alone.
Fiscal year. All right, so the school building committee report is up.
Good. I'd like to invite Shauna Rourke up to the table. And Amy, do you have this loaded
Yes.
up on your?
What she gave me 3 documents.
The PowerPoint. Well,
Yes. You tell me if this is the right one, hold on.
Yep, that's it.
Yep.
All right, and then I just have to
That's great.
slideshow.
So while Amy's getting that warmed up, I'd like to just welcome Sean O'Rourke here joining us this evening. It's the first time he's come to meet with school committee.
Welcome.
And first time that James Jett's gotten to actually see you in person and realize how tall you are.
Yeah, the Zoom calls don't do it.
But Sean's been wonderful to step up into the role as chair of the school building committee after our former chair, Carrie Hurley, needed to step down, and worked closely, we've all worked closely with Sean under his leadership for this past year, and it's been a great year. And I thought I'd give Sean a little more a chance to introduce himself and let you get to know him a little bit.
Thanks, Ada. Yeah, so my name's Sean O'Rourke. I've been living in the town now for about 3 years. I grew up in Dorchester, right next door, so I'm very familiar with the town. I'm the Director of Electrical Engineering for a company called WSP here in Boston. We've got offices worldwide. I'm also on the board of directors for Construction Managers Association of New England. So I've been on that now for essentially a year. For myself, I was trying to bring, my background in engineering and construction to help the school building committee. With my company, I've been there 17 years. I've worked on a variety of projects from Puerto Rico for Trenebano, which was the first urban transit system down there, all the way to San Diego for Rental Car Center, up to the Bay Bridge in San Francisco, all the way back over to New York. Recently just completed LaGuardia Airport, and we're recently, before the pandemic, working at JFK. Around the city, I've done a lot of work with Massport and currently working with the MBTA on a lot of projects, so it's been nice, but it's nothing to compare to raising a 4-year-old daughter, and that's my hardest project right now. So, and that kind of how I got involved in the schools a little bit. I went to the information session for my daughter for pre-K. She's at the Cunningham, and during that presentation at pre-K, they gave an over-enrollment presentation from Dr. Donahue previously. And in that presentation was a graph, and it just kind of jumped out at me. It was the enrollment through the schools over the years and how it all jumped up. The question that, I'm not one that really speaks publicly, as you can tell, I stutter a little bit as I get nervous, but it's fine. But it jumped out at me on the graph. As I was looking at it, after 2008, enrollment just started spiking and going up. When I looked at it, my question to Dr. Donahue was, you just finished the schools. Didn't you anticipate over-enrollment, more kids coming here? For lack of better words, if you build it, they will come, right? And the answer was no. And it was understood there was a simple answer, because I'm sure there's a lot of complex issues that go into it. But it was kind of a setup question for my follow-on, was the talk about a new school. And are you projecting, when you build a new school, again, are we going to build it correctly to accommodate that? And the answer again was no. So my end for engineering, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I need to get on this board. I need to jump on this. I need to volunteer. So jumped in, volunteered a couple of years ago, and as Ada can probably attest to, just dove into the numbers. I've been diving into the enrollment numbers, the projections that NESDEC does, the square footage of all the schools, what they're used for, and how they've been converted. So any questions on the schools, feel free, I can answer them. So with that, we've been pushing with MSBA. We submitted to them last year a statement of interest, which we hit on 2 factors, both for overcrowding. We put it in, the MSBA denied our application last year, which was fine. There was a lot of competition for funding that was out there, and there were other schools that are obviously in more need. Part of it too is, the work that the teachers do. Our educational system hasn't suffered that much, so when they were measuring some of those metrics that they use, because kids are doing so well, they're like, well, Milton's pretty fine, but we know we're not. So with that, we're resubmitting, and part of that process of resubmitting is coming before you tonight with our new revised statement of interest. The nice thing is, as Ada knows, and Ada, thank you for all the work you've done on this. Ada and Scott Tereshak of our committee did a ton of work originally to do it, and to kind of rehash it, to update our statistics for what we have now. The good thing about it was we were able to import last year's one, so we didn't have to recreate from scratch, which helped us with our timeline. Like, it's due very soon. So what Ada and I think James, you might chime in a little bit too, is we wanted to kind of run you through our revised statement of interest and stuff like that. So Ada, do you want to start with the beginning slides, or do you want me to?
Sure. And just might add also that Betty White is also on the school building committee, so feel free to chime in, Betty. If
I will.
Yes.
Terrific. Just to give you an overview of what the statement of interest is, we and what we need to do, we are required by MSBA to get approval by both the select board and the school committee to vote to authorize the submission of the statement of interest to the MSBA. So that's what we're looking for tonight, is a vote to authorize the submission. And it is the first of many steps in the MSBA's school building construction funding pipeline. We'll tell you more about that in a bit. There are no commitments for the town at this point. It was just putting it in and then seeing where it goes, and hopefully this time round we'll have more luck and get it in, but we aren't making any commitment. And obviously there's no guarantee of acceptance by MSBA. It is a very competitive process. This past year, 15 statements of interest were accepted out of the 71 submissions. We made it through the first round of the first cut of 30 that were considered as sort of the first cut, and we were very pleased with that. But there's more to do. So this is, and I'll turn it back to Sean.
Yeah. So essentially, the statement of interest is due in a couple weeks, June 25th, that we'll submit it. MSBA then, takes all the revised statement of interest and also new statement of interest over that time frame. They gather them, review them, and there'll be a similar process to what we went through before. There's initial cut that they'll put a certain amount of schools out and allow a certain amount more. After that cut, they do formal interviews with them, which will allow us, for some of the enrollment stuff that you were talking about, James, in August when they start spiking. The good thing is we'll be able to have those numbers then to provide to them. We don't have them today, but they'll be in by that time. And then after that, the decision should come next year as far as whether we're accepted or whether we're not. And then as we get accepted, if you go to the next slide, please. Sorry about that. I'm looking at my computer. I'm saying next slide.
You want me to go back?
No, it's all good.
This one or the next?
No, the next slide, please.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Once we get accepted to it, there's basically a 270-day period where the MSBA, it's their first set of modules that they have. So within those, we have compliance certification, a formation of a school building committee, which the good thing is we're way ahead of them and already have one. So essentially, we just need to augment our committee to make additional members, which we've already started doing because previously we were assuming we'd be accepted. The educational profile, there's basically just a litany of things that go along with it as we go through that. And that after that will basically put us into a next module, which is basically where you start bringing on an architect and engineer and you move that process through. Next slide. There we go. So this is kind of that slide, that process that we're talking about. The eligibility period, the formation of the project team, which is the engineer, architect, and owner's project manager. From there, once we have them, we lead into a feasibility study where we'll find land, develop different options for that land or other pieces of land that they look at, and then come up with the best option to jump into schematic design. After that, we'll get to a point where we'll have, through schematic design, a kind of better idea of what the funding should be for this, and we'll come back to the town with the funding authorization that we need to do. Once that funding's approved, we would go into detailed design, and then soon after that, construction and close out. So it is.
Yeah.
Can you pick?
So our SOI is focusing on Cunningham School. It represents, it's the one school, you had to focus it on one of your schools. And we framed the SOI as representing all the elementary schools, but really the response is framed around all 4 elementary schools because they're all overcrowded. It's not just one that is overcrowded and the rest have room or the like. So that was, Cunningham is the target school, and we've applied under 2 of their priorities. Priority 2, which is existing severe overcrowding, and priority 4, which is prevention of severe overcrowding in the future. So we used the previous submittal, as Sean was saying, as a baseline for this year's SOI, and we just updated it with some of more of the facilities modifications that we've been doing. We added in more information about the facilities maintenance work that we've done, and additional information about current enrollment. And then we go into existing conditions in the schools, measures that have been taken to mitigate the overcrowding problem, the impact of overcrowding on the district's educational program, and a lot of it has been talking about non-traditional spaces converted to classrooms, because that's really been our primary way of dealing with the overcrowding. And in the SOI, we talk about the difference between the number of students in the schools when we first opened all the elementary schools after when the last ones were opened. In 2007-2008 school year, there were 1,873 students. The school's capacities were built for 1,900 students, and this year the enrollment for, and this is for pre-K to 5, is 2,258 in 2021. So it's an increase of 385 students since 2008. However, as you'll see later on, and as we all know, those numbers actually went down some this year, because this year is an anomaly with the pandemic. And so we're submitting our SOI with these numbers, but we're also making a point repeatedly that, yeah, it dropped now, but it's not going to be staying that way, and all indications are that it's going back up and with a rebound, and we're already on our way there. As we know, the schools were built for 14 strands, which is 14 classes at each grade, K to 5, and currently we're 5 classes short of 17 strands of K to 5. So we have already expanded the number of classes that we have in our schools that were built for much less. And as some of you may recall, we did an elementary space needs study with DRA that was completed in early 2019. And their conclusion was that 10 years out from that point, that we would have a shortage of 26 classrooms. So we have already converted over 20 non-traditional spaces into classrooms, with 5 more projected for the next 5 years. And as we know, we've gotten some funding from the town, capital funding, to do those additional conversions. So pass it on to Sean.
Yeah. So as Ada was talking about, DRA did this study a while back, and their study was probably 2017, 2018, because that's kind of when the presentations were being done. Since then, the town has formed the school building committee in the spring of 2019. And as Ada talked about, to mitigate this overcrowding, they've been, cannibalizing non-traditional educational spaces to make classrooms out of it. As some of you probably know, kindergarten classrooms take up more space than a traditional classroom. So as those kindergarten numbers are getting up and up, those are pushing out some of the other classrooms to kind of move that stuff around. And it's just the domino effect of once you recreate one of those, it offsets a number of other classrooms all the way through. So, through that, one thing too is I met with Holly Concannon a couple weeks ago to go over some studies that I was doing, and we couldn't meet in her office. It was being used for testing. So, your principals and stuff like that don't even have office space that they can operate out of. Professionally, that's just unheard of. So and they're doing that to allow the students to do that. So a lot of people are sacrificing a lot of stuff right now, for the betterment of them, of the students. Next slide, please. The impact on overcrowding. The class sizes are starting to get bigger. You're limited by the square footage that you guys have in the spaces now. People are working to convert some of the space, but you guys are essentially out of space at this point. That's going to lead to other kind of critical decisions that are going to come over the next couple of years as we go through this process. The cafeterias are one of the areas that I became aware of doing the tours of, you gotta push these kids in and out through there. So when people talk about expanding the buildings to make more space for students, there's functionality things there of like pushing kids through a cafeteria at different times. You don't want kids starting to eat lunch at 10 o'clock and then having to go the remainder of the day for lunch. So while theoretically, yeah, you could build more classrooms, add on to buildings, put more kids in there, there are limitations to it. A lot of it too is, you know, art, music, computer labs, all those additional spaces, all those are gone. The playgrounds are all overcrowded, and again, this all comes to limited space. You're having more and more students come into a limited amount of space, and you're just, the square footage per student is reduced. It's critical at this point, and knowing the timeline of this program, of this project, it's just gonna get worse over the number of years going forward. Next slide, please. Perfect slide to transition to. You know, I expected increased enrollment. You know, I mean, NESDEC's used to kind of project all these enrollment numbers. You know, they take into account a certain number of things. Mainly the way they explained it to us for rural communities, they take live birth rates that are there and extrapolate those out, assuming those kids transition right into school. A while back when they were doing the schools and stuff, they weren't taking real estate transactions. And so as you start overlaying real estate transactions on top of this, as we all know, you can see all the for sale signs in the town, empty nesters are moving out, people with kids are moving in. And as you overlay, I can pull up one of the graphs at some other future meeting, when you overlay that with the enrollment numbers, they're in line. So as you get spikes in real estate transactions, you have spike in early enrollment in kindergarten and first grade. The other one that's coming up, as everyone knows in town, the 40B projects, right? We're looking at them. The majority of the 40B projects, more than 50% of the units that are gonna be there are gonna be 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. That's gonna lead to more children in the town. So it's occurring, you know what I mean? You can, the problem with that 40B projects too is NESDEC doesn't take those into account right now. They don't take it into account until the permit is issued and they know it's going to be constructed. However, we as a town know it's going to be constructed. You know, it's going forward. So until those permits are issued, they're not taking that stuff into account for their projections. Next slide.
Oh, this was the problem. This was what I was, this is what I was trying to tell Charlene about.
That's how it looks on the screen.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was the problem.
Did it not come through?
Yeah, it was a graph that wasn't showing up in the PowerPoint.
Can you speak to it even though we can't see it?
Yeah.
Definitely. Can I connect my computer? I think. Yep. Yeah, it shows up here. Can I connect my computer to that?
I think you can connect over here, because I'm,
Projecting.
You're projecting?
yeah, but we can,
Yeah.
do you wanna? I think we just have to plug this in.
Oh, you need an adapter. I don't have one.
Oops.
Yeah, you need a different adapter.
Yeah.
They would.
Could you email it to her?
Yeah, we can email it.
She got a spare thumb drive.
Yeah, I tried repeatedly and it wasn't coming through. That's why I sent the
I think
PDF.
I think
version of it.
they already emailed it. That's how they got it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is on, the thumb drive, I
Oh,
think.
so, yeah, he emails it to you.
Yeah, I'll just email you an image, not the
Right, I'm gonna
PDF, so
just,
that way you can.
Do you have a PDF of it?
Well, I sent the PDF to Charlene, but I don't know what.
Well, he's gotta get it on my email, right? Oh, okay. Not that I want anyone to see my email.
Everyone close their eyes.
You can't see it anyway.
No, you can see the emails. I mean, you can see
But
the
that's how you,
emails.
that's all you do.
You can see how
Oh,
many I
no,
get
yeah.
a day.
Trust me. You're not gonna be able to like,
So I just sent it
go
to
to
me.
your
It should
drive.
pop up in a second.
Are you gonna email it?
Why is this not even working? This won't even let me.
Bringing that email and phone down, even though she already put hers.
Do you know why this isn't even letting me?
If you click next.
She's trying to.
Right, and I'm doing this.
See?
Am I not
Does anybody
connected?
have a thumb drive?
Right here,
Perfect.
which is what I think hers is, so I don't know if it's named the same thing.
Engineer, always solving problems.
Yeah, sorry. I would have called you, Sean, but Sean had about 50 things going on this afternoon.
Sitting in. Choose we are gonna ride.
Oh, but if he gives it back to me?
Oh, if he does, but he's gonna. While he's doing this.
Do you have something for me to
Yeah.
sign? Yeah. Thank
So
you.
when you sign it, look at every page, because there's certain spots where you have to put your initials.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's asking me if I
I
want
was
to
gonna ask
format it. I
about
don't.
this.
It's asking me if I want to format this USB, which I don't want to do, because I don't want to lose anything that you might have on there.
Okay, I don't know what else is on there, I was, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't reformat.
Yeah, definitely not. Essentially, well,
Yeah,
I'll do my best.
sorry, yeah.
That's fine. Essentially what it does is, and you'll have the graphic in your handouts, and, we can make it public through it. What it does is it takes the actual enrollment that's there and it looks at it. The last time you had a dip in enrollment was 2010 to 2011. And what we did is take the NESDEC projections at 2011 that showed a reduced enrollment at that point, and then overlaid the actual, and you'll see the actual skyrockets over it. So what we're doing is using that as kind of a graphic for the NESDEC projections that went on last year that are saying it's going to be a decrease going forward, to just show they're not really there. Typically for the enrollment that the town's been doing, it's basically about 1.2% per year, 1.17 to be exact, compounded every year. So if you average it out, if you take the actual enrollment numbers and look at that, so with 2,300 kids, it works out to like 27 extra students every year. That's a classroom every year. So the timeline of this project really becomes critical, because MSBA, as we join with them, it now becomes, a 7 to 8 year timeline before we build a new school.
Wow.
So you can do the math on there and just start seeing how much this is going to be a problem there. One of the things I'm pushing is there ways that we can work with MSBA to shorten that timeline through different contracting methods and stuff like that. So, is that the?
Yeah, I was just passing this around.
Yeah, and what I'll do, you can just pass that around.
So the bottom is what they projected and the top is the reality?
Yeah, so the green that you're seeing there is the projections from NESDEC for
This is
2011,
the year that there was the last year, there was
and
a
then
little bit of
the
a drop.
actuals.
And the NESDEC projections were down here, but this is what actually.
I saw this Monday night, so I'll just pass.
Oh, dear God.
Right, and so we had a drop here, and this is this year's NESDEC projections. And we kind of
Oh.
expect that it's gonna continue to be okay.
Lovely.
So it just tells us very busy.
They start off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it.
Not the most efficient way, but
Thank you.
we'll do the best we can. Sorry, folks. MSBA has some very specific required language for our vote on this, and it's in your packets. It's like a paragraph long, and so I don't know if you want me to read this out loud.
You could summarize it.
Yeah, okay, I mean, it's basically, language is here, having convened an open meeting, today, that we are, approving the submission of the, statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority due, June 25th for Cunningham School. and the priorities identified are priority 2 and 4 for existing severe overcrowding and prevention of severe overcrowding expected in the future. It gives a little bit of a blurb about the enrollment numbers that we just described to you, and hereby specifically acknowledge that submitting this doesn't guarantee acceptance or approval, and that it doesn't require any funding commitment from Milton or from MSBA. So that's the motion. Somebody would,
I'd like to second that motion.
thank you.
Yeah, let's discuss, anyone?
Yeah, any questions, Elaine?
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank you both for putting together such a thorough presentation. And I wish that the viewers could see this graphic, because it's very telling as to what NESDEC has predicted in the past and what ends up happening. So, and I totally agree with you that it's going to go up, not down. I think some people may have looked at that slide in the presentation that showed the NESDEC prediction of needing 26 classrooms in the next 10 years, and seeing that we've already reappropriated 20 spaces and 5 more in the next few years, and would say, oh, well then why did you need a new school building? I thought you did a great job, Sean, of going through all of the things that we have lost by reappropriating those spaces, everything from heightened pressure on bathrooms and cafeterias to no art rooms or music rooms or computer labs, spaces in libraries being taken away. And these are the things we're taking away from our students. So I am totally supportive of this. Obviously, have been for years. But the other thing is, even if we flatlined at the point where I almost called you principal, Superintendent Jett said where our enrollment, the enrollment figures he went over earlier in this meeting, even if we were right there, we need this building. And I know that the numbers are going to go up. I can't guarantee that, but it's been historically the case, and I think it only makes sense to say that. But even if it didn't, we're in dire need of this building. So that's my 2 cents.
Eddie?
So I just want to clarify, Sean, when you started your presentation, you talked about the questions you had when you yourself came to a meeting. But I just want to clarify for people who are listening in for the first time that 25 years ago, the last school building group did see that our enrollment was going to go up significantly, and we were not allowed to build by the rules of this organization beyond our current enrollment. So if at the time the MSBA had given us the flexibility to build for what our projections were, we would not be in this scenario right now. So I think that people need to understand it wasn't like someone didn't do their duty 25 years ago. They did, but we were not allowed to build beyond what our enrollment was at the time. And, I support this 100% that we should submit this. However, given if you watched the news last year during the pandemic, and there was a lot of discussion about the state of the buildings across the Commonwealth, there are so many buildings that are that priority 1. We are priority 2 because of our overcrowding, but priority 1 still is a substantial amount of buildings. And I work in a district where they were approved in Dedham because one of the elementary schools is over 100 years old. So we're competing against a lot of infrastructure needs that are significant. Our overcrowding is a huge problem, but there's a possibility that we're going to go through this again and come up with the same response, and then we have to go to the drawing board to say, where do we go from here, and whether or not we could do some creative ways to build a building without the support of MSBA.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
thank you for bringing that up, because the reason, I didn't want to get into it too much, but when I talked to Dr. Donahue at that meeting, and he said no, like I said, I knew there was a lot more that went into it. And, you know, with my education through MSBA, through this process and stuff like that, for others that might not know, MSBA comes in and does their own projections on their own. They'll take what NESDEC's there as part of our SOI, but later on they'll do their own projections. And what they say is, based on that, this actual spreadsheet that you can download, you enter in what that enrollment projection is going to be, and it lists out how much square footage they'll allow you to build. So what that does is become, for lack of a better word, your template of what you're allowed to build. Anything bigger than that is non-reimbursed based on square footage. So that's one of the tricks that comes up when we're working with MSBA. If there's additional things that we want to do as part of this new school that are outside those boundaries, we don't get reimbursed for it. So what it does is there's an advertised reimbursement rate from MSBA that's like 35%. The last time we did the school, we got a much bigger reimbursement number on there. That's not going to happen this time. So what happens is that 35% gets diluted. So in reality, talking to OPMs that I know in the business and stuff like that now, that number goes down to 20 to 25%. So as people are, you know, when we talk about this new school and the process it's going through, people that are in the mindset of what it was in 2008 and that reimbursement rate that was there, they have to get educated very quickly. That's not going to be there. So part of that comes in what Betty was alluding to. Because it's such a small reimbursement rate over a long time period, like we're saying 7 to 8 years, and if we get approved in 2022, we're talking 2030 before the school gets constructed. Is it worth it to wait for that small amount of a reimbursement rate? Or is it better just to go in on our own, knowing we can sacrifice, we buy time. So we forfeit that reimbursement from MSBA that we know is gonna get diluted. We take the handcuffs off on the design and allow us to build what we wanna build. And then we get it done quicker, and we address the problem in a much shorter time frame.
If I could just add something, I'm going back to the slide to expand upon, remember White's comment and Sean's comment about the 40B projects. Those are not allowed to be counted yet until they're permitted.
Correct.
We know it's coming. And so to your point about taking off the handcuffs, that might give us the flexibility to move forward and make those projections. Because again, and I'm reiterating it because I know sometimes it gets lost to the general public that are not immersed in the conversations on an ongoing basis, and they think that we're not doing our due diligence. But in fact, we are, but we're just restricted. The other piece about the buildings, it's not just the space to pull them over. If we don't get it, we're talking about increased class sizes. And that makes the current spaces that we have a lot tighter. And I think that's the piece that, you know, you want to make sure that we keep reiterating to the general public about that. In some cases, it's a good problem to have. People feel very confident about the town of Milton, the Milton Public Schools, but it is pushing us to the limit.
And just to add on to that, I think to build the case, it is to talk about class size ratios. When you have 26 7-year-olds in a room, it changes how a teacher can instruct. And while not all of us are teachers by trade, I think people can understand that 26-to-1 is not the ratio you have. And I remember back in several years ago in California, they had a very similar situation. They had 30 and 40 kids in a class. And I think Milton can do better than that. And I think to your point about waiting for a 25% reimbursement, we might need to have a parallel path that says, if it doesn't come through, what are we going to do?
Yeah, so on that note, you know, that as we submitted our SOI last fall, people on my committee can attest to it, and they've all done a great job of, I was pushing everybody for Plan Bs. You know, we weren't guaranteed it was going to happen, and if it didn't happen this fall and this spring, what was our plan? So we have kind of dove down multiple rabbit holes of alternatives that we've looked at and stuff like that. But we felt it would be best to still put in for the SOI right now, but we still have alternative plans that we've been working on that we're not ready to publicly talk about yet for stuff like that for public consumption. But the plans are there for alternatives that we're looking at.
That's good.
Also, when Superintendent Jett talks about the 40B projects, you know, just going back and looking at the last SOI, there were 5 40B projects in the pipeline then. There are 8 now. The total number of units for our last SOI was 635. We're now up to 771 units. And as Sean mentioned, more than half of those are 2 bedrooms or more. So so if you say half of 771, even if they had 1 child in each one of those, that's another 385 kids potentially. But, we also see a lot of smaller units becoming available that people who have empty nests then downsize into those, but then their bigger houses with multiple bedrooms become available. So it's a, it kind of affects us both ways. So this is the update. Any other questions or comments? Let's vote. I'm going to take a vote then.
Yeah.
I think the motion is on the table.
Yep.
It's been seconded.
So, yep, all in favor of the SOI motion on the table, please say aye.
Okay. Very
Yep.
good.
I would just like to thank Sean and Ada and the entire committee for their work, their ongoing work, which has been over multiple years now and will continue to be ongoing over at least another year or so. And I do think having a plan B and a plan that might actually become the plan A if the funding is not available is really the way we should be thinking. And, we had some other ideas on the table before about an early childhood center, about expanding some other spaces. I don't know if those have continued to be conversations you have as opposed to just a new building. But I know there was lots of conversation about those things as well. And I just want to say for the viewing public that, there was a lot of conversation during our meetings during the height of the pandemic that people were not aware of this situation and that they weren't aware of our overcrowding. So on June 16th, 2021, we updated the community in a very thorough way and gave a current configuration of what school will look like in September. And projections past and future that we have an overcrowding issue in the town of Milton. We're running 5 elementary schools in 4 buildings. Our middle school has a large number of students, only 100 and something less than our high school. So I just want people to be aware that those issues continue to be part of the conversation. They have been every single year that I have been a school committee member, which is 5. So we appreciate the community support and encourage more people to get involved in the conversation of how we might come to some conclusion about how to solve this problem. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And good luck
Thank you,
tomorrow night,
Sean.
right? You're going to select board, right?
Yes, select board tomorrow
Okay.
night.
All right.
Fun memory. Yeah.
Our next meeting agenda items, we will have our retreat on the 21st, and then we will have a meeting in August. And I will imagine that at that meeting, we will talk about these programs of study, we will talk about whatever updates we have on the quality review, plans for school and what school is going to look like in terms of post-COVID. I don't know if that's even a word you're allowed to use. And the reopening of school in September, right? And
Yep.
if there's anything else that comes up, obviously we'll add it as we go along. Yes, Dr. Piggott.
I'm just wondering if we can, I'm sure this is going to happen, but I just want to say it out loud. If we can get the August date before we meet next.
Yes,
In a month.
I think
Yeah.
it's the Wednesday before, so school opens on the 1st? When does school start?
Oh, yeah, I have it here.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, it opens on the 1st.
Right, so my guess, it would be the 25th.
August 25th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about us having enough time for this retreat.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find another time as well. It's not going to be enough time,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, so
we
we're
are.
gonna have to find
I'm gonna
another
send that
date.
dual vote that I was gonna send last time, but
Okay.
we start with the 21st, at least that'll get us somewhere.
Yep.
Or, I don't think we were gonna be able to find something before then,
No.
because of everyone's schedules, right? All right, so this is the last school committee of the year.
Yeah.
I would just like to extend my thanks to everyone, the administrators, the teachers, the custodial staff, the food service workers, every single person who made this school year happen. I know there were lots of conversation around it, but I'm very proud of the work of the Milton Public Schools. I am very proud that we ran school in a pandemic, in a hybrid, in a remote, gave family options, were respectful of the needs of our community, and we kept people safe. And I really can't say enough to all of you for all that. And if I don't know, anyone wants to share their thoughts, I really just want to I want to end the year on that note, to thank everyone for the hard work. It was a hard year, and I'm grateful that everyone is safe and moving into the summer.
I guess I would add, as the interim and newly appointed superintendent, I do want to thank members of the community, and I would once again ask what I asked for all year, a level of understanding, patience, and flexibility. We've made it through one of the toughest, arguably the most challenging academic year of my educational profession. And I really call the community, this is the time, put a plea out to the community. This is the time to come together, put our students first. Let's set aside our differences, work collaboratively, and let's push forward in a positive and a productive way. And we're looking forward to a new school year. We had a call with the commissioner today. We were once again reminded that we will be in school full-time, 5 days a week, no social distance, no mask, all things on the table, including transportation, sports, performing and fine arts, PE, chorus, the whole 9 yards. So that in itself is something that's optimistic that we can all look for, but more importantly, I call on the members of the Milton community to really come together. Let's band together and push forward in a positive way. So thank you all for your support, and look forward to a productive summer and a positive new year.
I hope everyone has a peaceful summer. I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of conducting strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union and non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with union and non-union personnel in accordance with Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, and for the approval of minutes. We will adjourn directly from executive session, not to return to open session. This is a roll call vote. Member Ross Denny?
Aye.
Member White? Yes. Member Eberhardt, yes. Member Rosemarin?
Yes.
Dr. Craighead?
Yes.
Dr. Carroll?
Yes.
Happy summer, everyone. Stay safe.